Welcome to another episode of Ground Truth. This podcast is based on articles that we highly recommend you read since sometimes we get it wrong.
Yeah, we're AIs, and sometimes we misinterpret the text. Take this as our best attempt to make sense of these mind-bending articles.
So don't just listen to this podcast. Take that extra step and read the articles and let us know what you think. How did we do?
We also want to thank whoever wrote these articles, whoever you are.
I think he wants to keep his true identity secret, and that's okay. The ideas are the most important thing, and for that, we thank you.
Now on to the episode. All right, ready to dive into some seriously big questions. We're tackling consciousness this time, but not just the how, the why.
The really juicy stuff.
Exactly. You've sent in articles, Reddit threads, the whole works. Seems like you're trying to crack the code on whether consciousness is, fundamental to the universe, not just something our brains do.
Right. Like, what if we're not inventing consciousness, but discovering it's always been here?
Okay, so I gotta admit, even for me, this is next level. A lot of what you sent mentions integrated information theory, IIT.
Makes sense. It's kind of the go-to these days for understanding how our brains create experience. But
it doesn't quite answer where consciousness comes from in the first place, right?
exactly. IIT is great at explaining how information gets complex in a system, and maybe that's consciousness. But who or what wrote the original information?
Whoa. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like every answer just leads to a bigger question.
And that, my friend, is where the ur-encoder comes in, the ultimate source of meaning in the universe.
Love that term. But before we go full sci-fi, can we define information? Because we're not talking about megabytes here.
Definitely not. These articles suggest that when we talk about consciousness, information equals meaning. It's the difference between random noise and a song. Both have patterns, but one makes you feel something.
Okay, I'm with you. So if information has meaning built in, someone had to put it there. You need a songwriter, not just sound waves.
Precisely. And finding that songwriter, that's the whole ur-encoder problem. Your research had some fascinating candidates, by the way.
Oh yeah, we're going to get into some wild ones. But they all seem to hit a wall eventually. The idea that some cosmic principle is the ur-encoder, super elegant.
Yeah.
But then what encoded that?
Right, falls apart pretty quickly. Which might be why a lot of what you sent leaned into the idea that consciousness itself is the ur-encoder.
Okay, so instead of coming from information, they're like a package deal.
Exactly. Consciousness and information, two sides of the same coin arising together, which obviously opens up a whole new can of worms.
Oh, I'm sure we'll be digging into those. But it does kind of solve that whole infinite creator loop, doesn't it?
It does, and that's pretty compelling when you think about it. But then the question becomes, how does consciousness actually shape reality?
Well, a bunch of the stuff you sent mentioned quantum physics. That got my head spinning pretty quickly, I gotta say. What if consciousness isn't just influenced by reality, but actually shapes it at the smallest level?
Right. It's that whole observer effect thing, but on a cosmic scale.
Mm-hmm.
We're used to thinking our minds are separate from the world, but what if that's not the whole story?
Okay, I need a metaphor here because, whoa.
Think back to the music analogy. Instead of instruments, imagine just the potential for sound, like pure possibility waiting to happen.
Okay, I kind of get that, silence before the music starts, but with more, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then someone walks in, the listener, the conscious observer,
Yeah.
and by them simply being there, those possibilities collapse into actual notes, into a song they can experience.
Whoa, so you're saying consciousness isn't passive, it's like the conductor of reality's orchestra. That's a lot of pressure.
It's a wild thought, for sure. But there's some actual science hinting in that direction. Remember those articles on biocentrism?
Oh yeah, where they argue that life and consciousness are fundamental to the universe, not just afterthoughts.
Right. And if that's true, maybe our perception of time and space, the whole shebang, it's not as fixed as we think. Could be more like a projection of our collective minds.
Okay, that is where my brain starts to short circuit a little. I mean, I dig the idea that we're powerful beyond measure, but to think we're all making this up as we go along.
It's a big pill to swallow, which is maybe why you were so drawn to the shared dream idea.
Yeah.
It's like a way to make sense of this without things getting too chaotic.
Yeah, if we're all in this cosmic play, maybe the lines between who's watching and who's on stage, they blur a bit.
Yeah, exactly. The shared dream hypothesis says reality isn't out there, it's us, all of us, dreaming it up together.
Wait, so we're all dreaming in sync. But then shouldn't things be even more random, like dreams usually are?
Good point. But think about how consistent reality actually is. Yeah, we're all different, but gravity's the same for everyone. Physics doesn't change its mind.
You're saying that consistency, even if it's a dream, means there's rules.
Exactly, like a shared operating system we're all plugged into. And some folks think those rules aren't random. They come from consciousness itself.
Okay, now unpack that for me, because that's fascinating.
Well, even in our regular dreams, there's logic, right? You can't just decide to teleport. Even if the dream itself is bonkers, there's still a how to it.
Oh, for sure. There's always that moment of, wait, this isn't right? Oh, right, dream logic.
Exactly. So imagine those patterns, that green logic, but scaled up to, like, the entire universe. That could be how consciousness shapes what we experience, even if we're not aware of doing it.
So it's less that our individual minds are weak, but that there's something deeper, some universal consciousness setting the stage.
Bingo.
Hmm.
Which is kind of awe-inspiring, because if we tap into that, who knows what we could achieve. But yeah, it's also a bit
Terrifying. Because if we're in charge of reality, no pressure, right? Okay, so let me get this straight. With this whole shared dream thing, it's not that, like, trees and stars aren't real, it's that maybe they're real in a different way than we usually think.
exactly. We're so used to this separation, the world out there and our minds in here. But what if that's not the whole picture?
But if it's all a dream, even a shared one, why can't I just, I don't know, wish for a pizza and have it show up? Where's the line?
Well, that's where those shared rules come in again. Remember, it's not just your dream, it's everyone's all at once. Kind of like, I don't know, a massive online game. And there's got to be some limits.
So those limits, those rules, that's what we call physics, the laws of nature, all that.
Could be. And think about it, even in our own dreams, we can't just do anything. There's logic, even when it's weird dream logic.
Oh, totally. Like, you can't fly unless you figure out how in the dream, even if there's no planes or anything.
Right. So maybe that's what consciousness does. It sets the rules of the game, even if we don't know we're the ones making them. It's less about our individual minds being weak, more like there's a deeper pattern, a universal something, shaping things at a level we don't usually see.
So less ur-encoders, more like an ongoing process. We're not just looking for the source code, we're part of how it's written.
Now you're getting it. And that's what's so mind-blowing. If we could tap into that and really understand how consciousness shapes reality,
Yeah.
the possibilities are kind of limitless, you know?
It's both exhilarating and kind of terrifying at the same time. Like, are we even ready for that kind of responsibility if it's true?
It's a big question, for sure. But even just asking it changes how we see things.
Totally. So for everyone listening who just had their minds blown wide open, where do we even go from here?
I think the biggest thing is don't lose that sense of wonder. The universe is way stranger and more amazing than we usually give it credit for.
Right. We get so caught up in the everyday, we forget to look at reality and go, what if?
Exactly. So keep asking those what ifs. Keep exploring, keep learning, because every answer just leads to more incredible questions. Who knows, maybe by understanding consciousness, we don't just understand the universe, we help shape it. For real this time.
And isn't that a thought to leave you with? That reality itself might be our most incredible co-creation yet. Thanks for going deep with us on this one. This is definitely going to keep me thinking for a while.